Welcome back. Welcome back. It's your boy Mike coming at y'all, man. Bye week 13, second straight season with a pretty late bye week. Week 14 last year, this time week 13. But this time around, it is going to have to be a major reset if we hope to keep any hopes alive of a potential playoff push, as we currently sit at 5-7, coming off of 4 straight defeats, and none of them particularly competitive. It started with the Panthers, who lost 2-7, but the game was not nearly as close as that scoreline would otherwise indicate. Got absolutely battered by the Bills, 44-9. Got destroyed by the Rams, and it was a tie ball game at one point in that one, but just never really close after that. And then, of course, the most recent one coming at the hands of Seattle. But taking a look at the playoff picture, San Francisco and Cincinnati currently leading their respective conferences, the current division leaders. Other than them, you got the Raiders, Bills, Jags in that order, along with Dallas, Carolina, and Detroit. Kansas City, New York, the Jets, and the Chargers, the current wild card teams in the AFC, Saints, Rams, Bears, the current playoff teams in the NFC. Now, the Rams and Bears, that is an interesting one because both of those teams currently sit at 5-6, while Arizona sits at 5-7. So there could be more potential for a playoff push than we initially would have thought, with it being relatively weak, after those division winners for the most part in this season. But let's go ahead and take a look at some current contracts. Antonio Gibson, I don't know about you all, man, but I feel like this man has deserved an extension from us. We're going to go ahead and hand him a 3-year extension. Definitely like what he's been able to do as a change of pace back. That brings us, though, to Marco Wilson. Wilson, not someone who we've been super enamored with. Didn't think he was, particularly outstanding last year. Then, with his move to safety and us bringing in Lewis Seen and Jaron Kearse, just hasn't seen the field a whole lot. KJ Hamler, similarly, he's done some okay things in the return game, but think we can improve upon that. Will Hernandez, not really interested in that re-signing either. But Israel Mukuamu, of course, acquired before the start of last season and played decently well, as that third corner in the slot. And we do want to offer him a contract, but he's just not ready to commit at this current moment. Leki Fotu, not interested. Tim Settle, we're not interested. Deshaun Hand, we're not interested. Definitely a lot of our interior who we signed over the offseason, including Danico Autry, who hasn't even really seen the field a whole lot. Just haven't been in the cards. And Jaron Kearse, man, he was someone that we brought in. He's not fast, so we didn't really want to use him necessarily as a safety. Wanted to use him more as a box safety, really as more of a linebacker type of role. But with the emergence of Cam Wilhelm and with Zaven Collins already on the team, just don't see a role for him moving forward. So we're going to go ahead and veer away from that, at least, at the current moment. For all of these guys, there's potential for, something to happen in the offseason. But for the moment, we're going to go ahead and make those decisions. As during the bye week, we have decided to go ahead and keep grinding with 5 games remaining and needing a lot to go in our favor, to, again, get into the tournament, the postseason at the end of the season. Just a few things that we had to keep in mind, And we want our team to make sure they're staying on top of their game, especially considering that this week, and not that a lot of our offense isn't already familiar with him, but Josh Dobbs is going to be under center this week because of that broken ribs injury Glenn Roberts suffered in the game against Seattle. And with that being the case, it just makes sense to go ahead and get everyone a few extra reps with Dobbs as that first team quarterback for the week. And, making sure that he's still on the same page with our receivers and vice versa, making sure the offensive line kind of understands the way that he prefers his blocking, different things like that. As you see right here, we're having Andrew Stinson, who gets beat badly right there on the whip route by KJ Hamler. And of course, KJ, started in the last game, had 2 catches in that game. Gonna be relegated back to just his return role for the future, the foreseeable future of this season, with Rondale Moore coming back. Hopefully no more injuries, depleting that receiver room, as this time around it's going to be Lewis Seen, who also gets destroyed on that whip route. How about that? But man, there's definitely a lot to talk about with this team so far. I'm not quite sure if you would describe it as underwhelming necessarily. Rookie quarterback, head coach in his second year, having a rookie learning a new system. Guys having to gel. Of course, Rondale Moore last year, prior to trading for Rashad Bateman, Rondale Moore was really the lead guy, even over Hollywood Brown. But once Bateman came in, there was kind of a realignment of the roles, so to speak, with Bateman really commanding more of those targets, most of those targets, as a matter of fact. And currently, finding himself in a similar position this season, even with the switch at quarterback with Glenn Roberts, who you would think that with his struggles with his accuracy would have tried to shift more to a, short, friendly game plan. But that isn't what he has envisioned himself as up to this point. That isn't what this coaching staff wants him to be. They don't want him to get too comfortable, falling into the routine of just, dumping it short and hoping that something can make way. So certainly going to be some things to watch out for moving forward. How is this coaching staff going to continue the development of Glenn Roberts? Started the season up and down, but he had some incredible highs and some very, very low lows. But recently, it's just been all lows. Has struggled to move this offense at all. It's been incredibly anemic. Has struggled when he's been gifted possession in, plus territory. And it's just a matter of how far is this coaching staff willing to go with Roberts? We're only 12 games into his career, so I'm not quite sure that it's fair to label him one way or the other just yet. However, in this league, it's about results and what have you done for me lately? And when you have a team who improved, on paper in the offseason, and you're supposedly a better quarterback than the man who was our incumbent starter in Josh Dobbs, it's just something that you have to take a look at, that you need to make sure that you're doing the best thing for your team as a whole, because you don't want to lose the locker room. A lot of these guys coming off of that close divisional loss to the Packers viewed this team as, playoff ready, playoff capable, and we just have not seen that up to this point. Started the season 5-3, after starting 0-2, winning 5 of our next 6, and then dropping 4 straight. It's just not a recipe for success. It's not a winning formula. And, we're going to have to definitely evaluate some things. We're going to need Glenn Roberts to overcome. We're going to need him to get better. He has an established number 1 receiver in Rashad Bateman. He has a very, very good number 2 in Rondale Moore, who brings a lot of speed and shiftiness to the offense. He has a very, very good running back in Ty Davis Price. Very good change of pace back in Antonio Gibson. He has a young tight end in Trey McBride, who's been steadily improving since the trade of Zach Ertz at the beginning of last season. Into being that number 1 tight end, shining in his role, understanding that he's not the first option, that he's very rarely even the second option, but running those routes anyway, buying into the blocking game, and just overall doing what he needs, for this offense to be successful. But unfortunately, up to this point, they just have not been that. And yes, we're leading the league in points per game. I feel like that's very, very. I just feel like that's very much a mirage. We've seen that this offense has times where they're very capable and able to make things happen, but we've also seen plenty of times where this offense has just given us absolutely nothing against the Bills. Yes, the Bills are a very good team. They boast, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. They got Tre'Davious White and Von Miller defensively. Matt Milano, that safety tandem of Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, veterans who are very, very smart and instinctive, who still have the physical capabilities of fulfilling the role that is needed for them. They have all of those things, but putting up 9 points in a game of that magnitude at a time in the season where you are essentially trying to just evaluate where you are as a team, it's just unacceptable. Quite frankly, the whole rookie thing is only going to be able to be had for Glenn Roberts for so long, before it just becomes, is he able to read these defenses? Has he been able to process at a higher level? Has he been able to realize that the jump from where he was in college at LSU, and, yes, LSU does play some very tough teams. They're in the SEC. They see Georgia, Alabama, all these different teams, Ole Miss, very regularly. But this is a step up. Everyone on LSU did not did not make it into the NFL, will not make it into the NFL. And Glenn Roberts was a first round pick. Now, if he's not as good as, the Cardinals were hoping he could potentially be, those physical attributes, definitely attracted them to him. But if he is not able to perform up to them and up to the potential that they had hoped for him, then, whether he was drafted in the first round, second round, or third round, it wouldn't make a difference. You're able to or you're not. And it doesn't really feel like Roberts is improving as the season has gone on. If anything, it feels like he's regressed to the point where he can't even hit a wide open receiver. We've seen over the course of this losing streak, we've seen Roberts overthrow Rashad Bateman in particular multiple times on wide open, deep balls. We've seen Trey McBride get overthrown. We've seen Chase Claypool try to extend for some of those just ridiculous passes. We've also seen Roberts, using that speed, thinking he's faster than he is. And yes, he is fast, but when you're in the NFL, a lot of these defensive players, man, they're athletes too. Do not let the positional tag fool you. When you have your Micah Parsons running around, a 240-pound man running a 4.38, howling at you off the edge. You just have to understand when to check it down, when to throw it away, and when to take these deep shots. If you're not trusting yourself to hit these deep balls, just take something short, take something cheap. Don't always have to take something deep. But as we take a look here, man, the offense is, as you see, glad that this is a bye week, as we see both DJ Humphries and Keegan Buchanan hurt during the practice session. But of course, Rashad Bateman, Rondale Moore, Chase Claypool, Trey McBride, Ty Davis Price, Antonio Gibson. We've been working Darnell Washington mostly as a fullback. I just think that the speed that Elijah Higgins provides, especially on those play action boots, things like that, a staple of our offense, just feel like he provides a little bit more in that sense. Defensively, this defensive front has not even whelmed. Obviously, I know that I don't think that that's actually a word. I don't think that they've underwhelmed necessarily, but I feel like they're slightly below average. Fatu Kasi, who hasn't seen the field a whole lot. Tim Settle, who hasn't seen the field a whole lot. Danico Autry, Deshaun Hand. We made plenty of signings in the free agency period last offseason to address those issues up front, and they just haven't really gotten better. If anything, they've gotten worse. But let's go ahead and take a look at these prospects, man. Tyson Moore, as you see here, Clemson quarterback, round 3 to 4 projection. At 21 years old, though, man, those tools, great to elite speed and acceleration, good to great throw power is not, obviously, it's not elite by any means, but definitely something to work with. You see that up here, B short accuracy, not quite 100% sure yet of the deep or medium accuracy. But part of me is thinking that this is Glenn Roberts 2.0 with a lower projection. But, if you're taking him in the third or fourth round as a backup, why not bet on those physical tools? Never know what you could potentially run into, doing that. Running backs, we didn't take a big look at. We have Ty Davis Price, have Antonio Gibson, who we just re-signed. So definitely not looking too deep into those. At receiver, Daryl Pollard, round 3 to 4 talent, 2 to 3 projection. He was who our scouts were recommending us to just take a deeper look on, and he has pretty good physical attributes, but as you see, as a receiver, he is lacking severely in pretty much everything. I was thinking we might have been able to use him more as a change of pace running back, kind of that Cordero Patterson type of mold, but I'm not really sold on him. We'll kind of see how the draft process plays out. And then Nolan Broyles, round 1 projection, think he looks very, very good out of USC. Great to elite speed, great to elite acceleration, change of direction, and agility. The jumping's not amazing, but this is definitely more of a route runner, more of a technician, type of receiver who has really good speed. Don't think we're going to be in the market for an early first round receiver, but, someone that I was very intrigued with as we were taking a look through these prospects. Similarly with tight end, as we said with running back, we have Trey McBride, we traded for Darnell Washington, and we have Elijah Higgins. Don't see us being in the market for a tight end in this draft class, at least definitely not early. At left tackle, we do see the talent of a few of these guys. Anthony McKee out of Tennessee, 21 years old, has good size there at 6'5". Good to elite speed, great to elite acceleration, good to great strength. Like those physical attributes, the power blocking just not in a really good space. But definitely someone to keep an eye on, especially DJ Humphries getting older, only going to have one more year left on that contract of his. So something that you got to just keep an eye on. Cole Lawton, though, does look like a very good prospect. Great to elite strength, speed, and acceleration. Pretty swift of feet, very strong. And his power blocking also not elite, but definitely in a much better place than Anthony McKee. So something to keep an eye on. Matt Kaplan, 21 years old, out of Clemson, the blocker for that quarterback we were taking a look at. And you take a look, and there's a red flag immediately staring you in the face at D pass blocking. And, of course, no prospect is ever going to be completely 100% polished coming into the league. But D pass blocking, and of course, that's relative to the rest of the class. That's unacceptable, and definitely something that's going to have him on likely a no draft list in our case. Moving on to the guards of or the left guards rather of this draft class. There are a few that look very, very good. Again, the interior of the line, not an immediate need, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And Justin Woodard, round 3 to 4 projection. He, at 21 years old out of South Carolina, looks like he could be a very, very good player, could be a steal of the draft type of player, good to great strength, acceleration, and speed. And, similarly, his run block game just as a whole, the finesse, the power just doesn't seem like it's going to be in a great place. But when you're, drafting someone for depth who could potentially take over a little bit later, definitely don't see that being a bad selection if we were able to get him around that projection. Now moving on to center, Garrett Alford, 22 years old, out of Florida. A, awareness, A, impact blocking, B, run block. Now the pass block is B to D, but again, great to elite acceleration and speed, good to great strength. And the pass block power, run block power, not in great places. The run block is decent, though, at B, and we don't yet know the pass block, but hopefully it would lean more B than D. But we'll just have to go ahead and finish the draft process to figure that out. James Rivera, another third to fourth round projected talent, 21 years old. And his top attributes really stand out just, with a first glance. Strength isn't amazing at just solid to good. That run blocking, finesse, and power, both not in great spaces, but with A, awareness, A, pass block, and A or B run block. Feel like it's definitely someone that, again, you could take a flyer on for depth, and could end up being a very good player out of this draft class. At right guard, Darian Brewer, definitely someone that looks very good. 23 years old, though, definitely on the older side as far as these prospects go. Solid to good strength, but very, very good with his feet. Good to great speed and great to elite acceleration. But again, man, just seeing some of those ratings kind of scaring me away a little bit with that projection for where he should be drafted. But Matt Hayward in the second or third round could potentially be somebody that's a little better right away. The run blocking, as you see, not in a great space, solid to good strength. But a lot of A's you saw right there. A, awareness. He has A, pass block. A to B, pass block power. A, pass block finesse. But he's not really a running guy. He's not really a run blocker. Similar attributes and stats to Dalton Murray. That's our current center. That's really what I'm getting when I'm looking at him as a prospect. Moving into right tackles now, Justin Goodwell, 23 years old, out of Georgia. And we know that Georgia tends to send a lot of tackles into the league, early, first, second, third round. Now, not all of them end up really panning out, but they do send a lot of them. Andrew Thomas, one of the latest examples of one that did work out, for the Giants. I'm a Cowboys fan, and Andrew Thomas, he's a very, very good offensive tackle, no doubt about it. And could potentially be in that Andrew Thomas type of mold there. Dean Overstreet, 6'7" out of USF. As you see there, great to elite strength, and the size on him is just something you can't teach. The talent fits the projection, and this could be somebody that we're keeping an eye on. But at F stamina and with the pass blocking not in a good spot, not really sure if that's going to be someone that we do target early on, and he probably will be gone in that mid first round. And then you have Quinn Newell right here, great to elite strength, and similarly F stamina, but he definitely looks a lot better in terms of the prospect. I think that stamina rating might be keeping his rating down because I believe that he looks better as a prospect than Dean Overstreet does. Moving into the defense, we're going to have a few guys here. We got Denario Stewart at left end, would definitely be more of a defensive tackle. Of course, we run a 3-4 defense, so he would be a 3-4 end, but could be someone that we look to move to D tackle alongside Juan Drummond. Just really depends if we decide to go that route, what he does look like, as a player. A, block shed, though, and B, power moves definitely tells me that he's going to have a pretty high floor to start out. Round 2 to 3 talent could be someone that we take a look at, if we have, maybe a mid-round pick in the second round. We'll just have to continue the rest of the process to go ahead and see about that. No one really on the right end side of things looking too good. And as you see, it's a very deep defensive tackle class here. You got 6 guys projected rounds 1 to 2, and then a few additional rounds 3 to 4, including George Cage here, 22 years old, out of Alabama. We know what type of program Nick Saban runs over there, and we truly believe that he tends to send more pro-ready guys to the league than most coaches are able to. But with great to elite speed, acceleration, and jumping as well, which isn't overly necessary. But B, block shed, A, finesse moves, A, play recognition. This could be somebody, again, who we keep as more of a 3-4 defensive end rather than a true, nose tackle. And definitely somebody to go ahead and keep an eye on. As we take a look, linebacker, again, not an immediate need. We have Ojulari and Cam Thomas on the edge, and in the middle we have Zaven Collins and Cam Wilhelm. But Justin Maynard, round 3 to 4, B block, shed, pursuit, and tackling, 21 years old, another Alabama kid with good to great speed and great to elite acceleration. Could be somebody that could be a depth piece moving forward. Of course, we do have Owen Popo filling in as that third linebacker currently, but he's really more just a speed guy at this current moment in time. And then, haven't confirmed the zone coverage yet, but A to C, could be closer to A, could be closer to C. You just never know. With the draft, it's always just a bit of a question mark on a lot of guys. Martin Kramer, just someone I wanted to take a brief look at again, not in the market for an edge rushing linebacker. Christopher Bronson here at corner, another Alabama guy, 6 foot, 196 pounds, 21 years old. And you see A man coverage, B press right off the bat. Now the zone is B to D. His speed is not great, as he's really not as much of an athlete as you typically like to see your cornerbacks be in today's day and age in the NFL. He really reminds me of Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson, of course, also 6 feet, not the quickest of feet by any means, and very, very good just in coverage, well, in theory anyway. So maybe not going to lean so much towards that, but we will see. Amani Harris here out of Western Michigan, 5'11", also 21 years old. You see A catching there, and he is a burner. Great to elite speed and acceleration. Definitely looks very good physically as we're taking a look. B man coverage, B to D zone. We do run more man than zone just in general. So, if the zone ends up being, C to D range, that might not potentially scare us away, but you just never know. Taking a look through a few more here, and not a whole lot of these corners really jump off the page to us, but there is one more guy we wanted to We wanted to take a bit of a deeper dive into, and that is going to be cornerback Kai Felix out of Oregon. Of course, a little older than the first couple of cornerback prospects that we looked at. And, the zone coverage is a C. Not quite sure of the man yet, but B press. And this could be a guy, again, just more of a depth piece. Good to great speed and acceleration. So not a burner, but should have pretty good speed to be able to, keep up with these NFL caliber receivers. But one thing that I did, myself and the coaching staff kind of were taking a look at is, could this be another Teez Tabor situation? Teez Tabor, of course, a second rounder for the Lions back in, I want to say it was 2017. Just, as good as he was in coverage or decent in coverage in college, he was slow. And it was just really difficult for him when he came to the NFL to adjust to the speed and quickness of these NFL players. Otis Towns here at free safety, not going to go super in-depth on the safety class. We do have Jalen Thompson, of course, at free safety, Lewis Seen at strong safety. We have not been impressed by Lewis Seen up to this point, but here only in his third year, we do have an option, for that 5th-year option later down the line. And whether we accept or decline, I would expect Seen to still have a pretty sizable role moving forward while he's with the team. Can't say for certain, though, up to this point. Just something to keep an eye on. Lamar Searcy, 6'2", 223 pounds. That is not a build you see every day. Shades of Cam Chancellor, if you will. That size is ridiculous, and he has the speed to match as well. However, similarly to currently with Lewis Seen, C to F zone coverage, A to C man coverage, which again is just in relation to the rest of the strong safeties in the class. Don't know if a first round pick on this guy would make sense. I feel like we would just be drafting a bigger Lewis Seen who's not as fast and equally bad in coverage. Now, yes, we would have the rookie contract and all those things. We wouldn't have to worry about paying him, but just not sure that that's the direction we need to go in our first round selection. As you take a look at the standings here, the Bengals leading the way up there. Raiders also with 10 wins, although they do have 2 losses. See a lot of 5-loss teams there. Your Arizona Cardinals currently 19th in the league at 5-7. And you see it's very much crowded here in this department. Seahawks down there 3-8, getting a win against us last week. And the Patriots at 2-9. Interesting. Very similar to real life, man. No quarterback, no receivers. The defense is reeling with injuries all over the place. And as you see, points for, we do lead the league in points scored, but it has not translated. We put up, 55 against the Seahawks earlier in the year, 48 against the Rams. That's already over 100 points. And we just lost to both of those teams in relatively embarrassing fashion. And we also have allowed the most points in the league by a mile. Second place, over 100 points less allowed than us. From 438 to 323, just has not been pretty so far up to this point. Again, something that we've emphasized throughout the season. Not sure what we need to do to make the defense, perform better. As you see, 21 points to the conceded to the Patriots, 17 to Seattle a few weeks later, and other than that, have failed to hold an opponent under 34 points. Just absolutely insane. And the meat of the schedule is coming up. Packers, Lions, Cowboys, at Niners, at Chiefs. All of these teams currently slated to make the playoffs with the exception of the Packers, but who most recently have beaten us, in our most recent matchup there in the divisional round last year. Now, the Lions, I feel like is a winnable game. Packers is a winnable game. Cowboys we did beat last year, but this is not the same team as we see, based on this 5-7 mark. And if you remember, we ended up going 11-6 last year. 2 of those losses came in the last 3 weeks. So, we're talking about we were 10-4 at one point and ended 11-6. We are 5-7 right now. It'd be a miracle if we were able to get to 10 wins. As you see, Roberts here. 28 touchdowns, 25 picks, though. Sacked 22 times, 3,229 yards. Josh Dobbs. Now, the numbers don't look great for Dobbs, but, you got to think he's come in relief for pretty much every time he's been on the field this year, which will change in our next game against the Packers. Ty Davis Price down about 20 yards a game average from last year. At only, quote unquote, only at 889 yards this season. He had 12 rushing scores a year ago. This season, only 4. But of course, Roberts and Gibson taking some carries away. But Tariq Cohen ran for over 500 yards last year. So he was taking away some opportunities as well. Just have not been in sync as an offense so far. Rashad Bateman, just clearing away the best target on this team. He definitely makes the most of all his opportunities. And if it wasn't for so many overthrows on the part of Glenn Roberts, we might be talking about an 1,900 yard receiver already, after just 12 games. But not the case. Rondale Moore, especially after missing last game, now dropping into 3rd as far as catches, yards, and touchdowns behind Trey McBride. And, after signing him to a contract extension this year, this offense is going to have to find a way to get Rondale Moore more involved. Now, he is coming off of a 100-plus yard game against the Rams, but what did it lead to? It was a case of too little, too late. We scored very late in that game with Rondale, to make things look a little better. And it did not end up working out in our favor. And as we take a look defensively, you're going to see Cam Thomas, 9 sacks, the rookie Juan Drummond with 3. B.J. Ojulari, though, very disappointingly, from a pass rushing perspective, just 2.5 sacks so far up to this point in the season. And he had 1.5 of those against the Rams, against Kirk Cousins. So only two separate games has he been involved, super thoroughly as far as being a pass rusher. And we're going to need more from him. He's an X factor player. We need him to start playing more like it. Cam Thomas has outshined him now for the second year in a row. And it's just not something that we were thinking would be the case coming into this year. We're thinking we have an elite edge rushing duo, or if not elite, just a step below. And BJ Ojulari has not held up his end of the bargain, as we see quite a few guys there with some touchdowns as well. But just to go on and continue on about the team, Glenn Roberts, of course, has been disappointing. Ty Davis Price, I don't think that he's been bad, but I think relative to expectations, especially since he's gotten better, he's had now a whole year under his belt as the lead back. And whether it's him or the offensive line, just something is not clicking in the running department as well. Ty Davis Price, who had multiple 120-yard games last year, has had, three up to this point this season? Something in that ballpark, has failed to make a huge impact. And now, granted, a lot of that is not on him, as we're getting into deep holes so early on in the game that it's really hard to, get into a rhythm when you're down 14-3, when you're down 21-7, when you're down 35-10. It's borderline impossible to get your running back favorable situations to run the ball in when you're playing so far behind the sticks. When you're playing behind the sticks, when you're playing so far from behind. And this is a big reason of why I think Roberts has thrown so many interceptions, is because he's been forced to try to throw us out of a lot of holes. Now, granted, a lot of them have been holes that he would put us into with his interceptions, but putting him in situations where he has to air the ball out 40 times a game when he already is very inconsistent as a passer just is not a recipe for success. And in, correlation with that, Ty Davis Price hasn't been able to get the running room that he was able to have last year. When you have a quarterback that consistently threatens defenses with his arms, even with his legs on occasion, it makes it a lot easier to push that running game forward and, just make it more of an emphasis as a team. Going to be definitely something that our offensive coordinator is going to harp on, because head coach Mike White harped on him about it. And but it's not going to happen overnight. And against a Packers team that does have Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and Jair Alexander, even Darnell Savage, who maybe is not elite, really more of an average player, he packs quite a punch as well when he's, coming downhill, going after a ball carrier. It's not going to be an easy game to try to go ahead and establish that identity. So definitely something that's going to have to be looked at moving forward, trying to get Ty Davis Price involved more early and more often. But again, with Antonio Gibson, how many big runs has Antonio Gibson had for us this year? He'll break off a 30-yarder when we're down by 14 points and have nothing going on offense, and then we're not able to cash it in. You take the ball from the 30 down to the 10, and then you see your team take you off the field and just keep punching in the face this defensive line that is not giving way to your offensive line. So something to keep an eye on. Rashad Bateman, Roberts has not been super in sync. You can say, oh, well, he's leading the league in yards and touchdowns and all these things. Rashad Bateman has not had an amazing game since this losing streak. Against the Bills, he had one catch. Against the Rams, he did have a hair under 100 yards, but just a lot of missed opportunities there. And it's definitely been a trying season up to this point. Not where we expected to be as a team. Again, I'm sure not where, the Cardinals fan base expected us to be as a team. But we have to wear it right now. We've dug this hole for ourselves. We are only a game behind in the loss column from 2 of the current wild card teams. So if we can correct some things over the coming weeks, and again, it's not going to be easy. We're going to have the Packers who, hopefully we will be able to go ahead and take out. It's not going to be an easy game. None of them have been up to this point. Hopefully we'll be able to take them out. Then after that, we have the Lions, who are currently leading their division, but only a game ahead of the Bears. And they're also a team that we could potentially be tracking down for a wild card spot. And, we said we didn't want to go into the bye week under 500, and we proceeded to lose games 3 and 4 in a row to 2 divisional opponents who have been lethargic this season. We absolutely destroyed both of them earlier this year, and against the Seahawks, Glenn Roberts had a big game, but just we haven't been able to recapture whatever it was that we were doing with him earlier on in the season. He's been using his legs a little bit more, but not consistently enough, for what we need from him as an offense. And it's not all his fault. Our offensive coordinator has to put him in better positions to use his legs, a little more often. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that is going to have to consistently be talked about in meetings, something that's consistently implemented into the game plan. And that's something that we do hope to see moving forward, as, any hope that we had of winning the division has likely dissipated at this point. San Francisco, still up to this point, only has 2 losses. And at 7 losses for us, we'd have to run the table with San Fran losing out. And I just don't see that happening. Don't think that that's a realistic outcome for this season. So I do think that for now, we're going to have to just have our eyes set on the wild card, making it into the tournament. And, when you get in, you just never know. The Giants, 2011, when they beat the Patriots, I believe they started that season 3-6, something like that, 3-5, and ended up rallying, going 8. Was that their 8-8 season or 9-7 season? Wow. Sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember. But I know it was one of those. They were the 7 seed. And what did they do? Won in the wild card against Atlanta. Won in the divisional round against Green Bay, who that season was 15-1. And then in the conference championship, took down San Francisco. And then, of course, obviously finishing things off with the win over New England to finish things out. But I don't know that Glenn Roberts would be able to channel that Manning magic that Eli Manning had for that run. Eli Manning was a veteran at that point, a multiple year veteran. And it's definitely going to come to a head here next week against Green Bay. This is a huge game, as we've been saying the last few weeks. We dropped one to Carolina to go to 5-4. We dropped one to Buffalo to drop down to 500. Going into the Rams game, we're saying this is a must-win type of game, with the Rams kind of on our tail a little bit and us not having performed well over the last few weeks. And then we lost to them. Must-win in Seattle. Got embarrassed in that game. DK Metcalf over 200 all-purpose yards, almost 250 all-purpose yards. But all those things said, the season marches on. We do have time to right the ship, but it's not going to happen with the snap of a finger. It's something that this team is going to have to actively work towards and make sure that they are putting their best foot forward each and every day, each and every week, through practice, whether it be a game, all those things. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Be sure to like and subscribe should you feel so inclined. Till next time, we take on the Packers. It's been your boy Mike. Have a great day and peace.